Have you ever imagined what really happens behind the tightly closed doors of a recording studio, where the biggest secrets of the music industry are so carefully kept? An unexpected confession from Charlie Puth is now shaking the foundations of the entertainment world, revealing layers of emotion that have been hidden between two of the world's brightest stars, Jungkook and Jimin, forcing us all to question everything we know about their bond in this suspenseful narrative. Don't forget to like this investigation report, comment on your theories below, and make sure you subscribe to follow each chapter of this big reveal so you don't miss out on other exclusive information, a late-night interview capable of tearing down a wall of privacy that has been built for more than a decade at the cost of millions of dollars. What did Charlie Puth actually witness in between filming a world record-breaking international collaboration? Yet somehow, that most crucial part never made it to any documentary editor's desk. The world knows them as group mates, brothers in arms who grew up together from the streets of Seoul to the top of the Billboard charts. But tonight, a huge curtain was accidentally lifted, leaving millions of fans glued to their screens. Questions that had only dared to be whispered in the dark corners of internet forums now suddenly have a very heavy weight of reality, creating a resonance that vibrates the global entertainment industry from Seoul to Hollywood. It all started with a casual talk session on a well-known podcast in Los Angeles, where Charlie Puth sat in his typical relaxed style. But his eyes radiated something more than the fatigue of promoting a new song. When the talk turned to his phenomenal collaboration with Jungkook in the song Left and Right, the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed, becoming heavier and full of anticipation. Charlie, known for his sometimes impulsive honesty on social media, begins to recount small details that initially seem mundane, but for those who are observant, they are a series of clues that lead to one big conclusion. He talked about how the atmosphere of the studio changed when Jimin suddenly appeared on the set, not just as a support for his group mates, but as a figure whose presence was able to change the entire gravity in the room. Deep shock begins to creep into this narrative as Charlie describes a behind-the-scenes moment that he thinks is so pure that no script could have faked it. He told how Jungkook, who was known to be very professional and focused, suddenly lost his work orientation shortly after Jimin stepped into the set area that was closed to the public. There is a magnetic pull that Charlie describes as something he has never seen in any collaboration partner in his long musical career. He spoke of a frequency of communication that required no words, a body language that was so synchronous that it made the production crew there feel as if they were interrupting a very sacred private moment. This is where the clickbait becomes apparent. Charlie implicitly states that the dynamic between the two of them has an emotional depth that goes beyond the standard definition of friendship in a K-pop industry full of strict rules. The emotional twist in this story is further felt when Charlie describes how Jungkook looked at Jimin in the moments of exhaustion struck in the middle of a grueling night of filming. Charlie notes that there's a kind of mutual protection, a form of dedication that is never shown to others in the work environment. Hidden clues are scattered in every sentence Charlie utters, from the way Jimin gives advice on Jungkook's vocal notes with an intimacy that only those who know each other have down to the deepest recesses of the soul, to how Jungkook refuses to continue the recording session before he makes sure Jimin feels comfortable in the studio waiting chair. This is no longer just a story about two pop idols. It is a narrative about human relationships so complex that it is difficult to box in the conventional labels provided by the mass media. Tensions rise as Charlie realizes that his words may have gone beyond the bounds of confidentiality protocols typically implemented by large agencies like HYBE. However, instead of retracting his words, he added a surprise that made the heartbeat of the army around the world race faster. He talks about an unreleased song, a composition he heard accidentally while Jungkook and Jimin were rehearsing in a dimly lit corner of the studio. The song, according to Charlie, is not about fans, not about success, but rather about the fear of losing each other in the bustle of a world full of ratings. Charlie's description of the lyrics he hears vaguely takes the reader to a new reality that is in stark contrast to the public image that has been so neatly maintained. The rhetoric that comes up then is, have we only seen what they want us to see, or have we collectively chosen to turn a blind eye to the signs that are already in sight? Charlie Puth's courage to speak about this in front of an international public was considered a revolutionary act, as well as dangerous for his own career. Behind the sparkling stage lights and the cheers of millions of people, there was a vacuum that could only be filled by each other's presence. And Charlie had indirectly become the first eyewitness who dared to verify the existence of the space. The public is now forced to reinterpret every interaction, every look, and every social media upload they've shared over the years as part of this grand narrative that has just come to light. As the interview progressed, the atmosphere grew tense as Charlie began to discuss the pressures faced by the two stars. He told how he was moved to see how Jimin became an anchor for Jungkook in times of anxiety in a foreign country. There is a vulnerability that is only shown when the two of them are within a close radius. A closeness that Charlie says proves that their relationship is the only real thing amid the fakes of the entertainment industry. He mentioned that the world might be shocked, but to anyone in the room with them, the truth was as clear as sunlight through the studio window. The shock after shock thrown by Charlie creates a picture that is so profound, making everyone who hears it feel an emotional responsibility to understand what is really happening. The Korean music industry itself seemed to be holding its breath as video snippets from this podcast began to spread like wildfire in a dry forest. No one expected that a Western musician would be the one to open this Pandora's box. Was this a planned move to prepare the public for a bigger announcement? Or was it purely the carelessness of a friend who was too amazed at the bonding he witnessed? The mystery thickens further when Charlie closes the segment with an enigmatic statement, saying that there are certain things that don't need official confirmation because they're already written in the air they breathe together. Every word that slides from Charlie Puth's lips seems to be a piece of the puzzle that has been missing, providing a fuller, but at the same time, more confusing picture of what really happened between Jungkook and Jimin. This narrative does not stop at mere recognition, but also delves deeper into the history of their interactions now viewed through a different lens. The audience is reminded of small moments at concerts, at airports, and at award shows where it seems that both have their own world. However, what Charlie said provided a much heavier and serious context than just the usual bromance promoted for marketing purposes. It is about the recognition of the existence of something more substantial, something that may have been their main source of strength to survive under the pressure of immense popularity. The tension built in this chapter is not just about gossip, but rather about revealing identities and emotional truths that have been tightly wrapped by contracts and public expectations. Readers who follow every line of this news will feel how their emotions are played between disbelief, excitement, and irrepressible curiosity. Why did Charlie Puth choose this time to speak? What impact will this statement have on the future of the group and their relationship personally? These rhetorical questions continue to haunt, creating a sense of urgency that makes anyone not want to move away from this report. Every detail given, from the way they shared food backstage to the way they kept each other private in the crowd, is now corroborating Charlie's claim that their relationship is indeed more than just friends. The most profound shock came when Charlie mentioned a moment in which he saw the two of them discussing the future in a very serious tone, away from the cameras and microphones that were on. He sees a commitment rarely found among colleagues, an implicit promise to always be there for each other no matter what obstacles stand in the way. This touches on the most human side of these global stars, reminding us that behind their status as idols, they're individuals seeking meaningful and genuine connections. This news takes us on an emotional journey that challenges our initial perceptions, inviting us to look beyond just a shiny surface as the chapter reaches its climax. The narrative takes us back to that Los Angeles studio, where silence is briefly created after Charlie utters those provocative key lines. The podcast host seemed at a loss for words, realizing that he had just recorded something that would make headlines around the world. Charlie's courage in conveying his version of the truth gives a new dimension to the discussion of the boundaries between private and public life for artists. On the other hand, fans began to dissect every inch of the video, looking for other hidden clues that might have been missed at the first hearing, creating a wave of reaction unprecedented in the history of K-pop fandom. Tensions continued to creep up as the report began to touch on the initial reaction from management in Seoul, who were rumored to be holding an emergency meeting. The shadow of a major scandal or confession that changed the history of the entertainment industry is now in sight. However, amidst all the panic, there's a strange sense of peace for those who have long suspected the truth behind Jungkook and Jimin's relationship. For them, Charlie Puth's words are not just a surprise, but rather a validation of what they have felt through the music and performances of the two idols over the years. This long narrative slowly leads the reader into a maze of increasingly dark but luminous emotions, where each turn offers a new surprise more intense than the previous. The final part of this introduction makes it clear that what is happening in Los Angeles is just the tip of the iceberg of a much larger and older story. The relationship between Jungkook and Jimin, now shot through the eyes of an objective but empathetic third party like Charlie Puth, becomes a case study in how love and dedication can flourish under the brightest of lights. We are left feeling stunned, waiting for what will happen next as the world reacts to this truth that has just spilled over. There is no turning back after this statement. A door has opened, and what lies behind it will change the way we view Jungkook, Jimin, and the meaning of a true relationship forever. The world is now waiting with bated breath, while speculation continues to grow on social media platforms, creating a digital storm of never-before-seen intensity. Every word written here is an attempt to capture the essence of the suspense, take you inside the secret chambers where major decisions are made and where the most honest feelings are stored. Is this the end of a secret or the beginning of a new era of openness? The question continues to resonate, demanding an answer that perhaps only time and courage can provide from those directly involved in this incredible whirlpool of emotions. Have you ever wondered why a 3-minute video takes days to process, when modern technology allows everything to be done in an instant? Is it possible that there are thousands of pieces of clips that were deliberately deleted, digitally burned, and thrown into the data dump because they contain truths that are too honest for the public to consume? After Charlie Puth's shocking world-shaking confession in the previous chapter, attention now turns to what's actually left on the editing room floor. Tiny bits of reality that somehow fail to be completely hidden by layers of filters and glittery visual effects. The tension is now moving from podcast studios in Los Angeles to digital archives that are beginning to be dismantled by those hungry for the truth, creating an increasingly deep and emotional treasure hunt for information. Click by click, digital detectives around the world began playing back every second of the left and right music video, but this time with a radically shifted perspective. They are no longer looking for visual aesthetics, but rather for reflections on sunglasses, shadows on studio walls, and micro details that may have escaped the close scrutiny of the agency's censorship team. Why is there one scene where Jungkook appears to be staring out the camera with such a genuine smile, as if there's someone very special standing right behind the lighting lamp? If it is true what Charlie said, that Jimin was present there, then Jungkook's every move in the video suddenly has a new, much more intimate meaning, a secret communication sent directly to the heart of someone standing just a few meters away from him. The deep shock came from the confession of a former production assistant who worked on the set, who chose to speak anonymously for the safety of her career. He describes the atmosphere on set not as a rigid work environment, but rather as a protective bubble in which two people seem to have found a way to create their own personal space in a crowd. The assistant told of a moment in between set changes where she accidentally passed Jungkook's dressing room and heard a very familiar Jimin's laugh that was impossible to misidentify. What stunned him was not Jimin's presence there, but the way Jungkook responded, a tone of voice full of tenderness and security that he rarely showed in front of official cameras. These hidden clues give an idea of a support system so strong, a bond that proves that Charlie Puth claims are not just a figment of the imagination. However, the question remains, why should they hide so neatly? Is the global music industry, with all its claims of inclusiveness, actually still a very scary place for personal truths? The emotional